Hey there, this is Lauren Kimball for ANI 245. In today's tutorial, we're going to do just a simple walk cycle using the Mery rig. Nothing fancy, nothing expressive, just the basic mechanics and applying them to a more complex rig. Okay? So before we get started, make sure that you've already gone ahead and installed Mery's picker. This will become incredibly helpful for today's lesson. If you haven't yet, make sure to download it off of Canvas. I'm going to go ahead and begin by creating a new scene. And I'm going to go ahead and reference Mery into my scene. So to do that, I'm going to go File, and I'm going to go to my reference editor. There it is. In the reference editor, I'm going to click on this button in the upper left-hand corner, and I'm going to reference Mery into my scene. Give it a moment, and there we go. Zoom out because Mery is quite large compared to the grid. All right, there she is. Now again, once you have the picker downloaded, make sure that it's working. So by default, this box up here has nothing in it when you first download it. And so if you try to select anything like Mery's head or her chest or her root, nothing is going to be selected until you tell the picker what interface, what rig it's looking for. So I'm going to uncheck this, and generally I could just type in Mery, M-E-R-Y, and things would start working. However, Mery has been referenced, which changes the name of the rig. If we look over here in the outliner, we can see it's Mery hyphen Mery. So we'll go over here and try typing that in, Mery hyphen Mery. And now when I grab controllers, it listens. So if you're having a hard time with your picker, try and make sure that you have the correct name convention inside that picker. All right. Next thing I want to do is select the facial controls. Now the facial controls can be dodgy. See, they're being dodgy today. If you first open up your scene and you quickly go to the face controls before opening the face tab, that seems to be the thing that makes it work. Otherwise, it likes to reference, the Mery picker likes to reference the full body front cam. I don't know how to get this to change its viewport once it's been set. Generally speaking, I would go to the Scenes tab, but there isn't one here, or the Panels tab. I don't see one readily available. So we're just going to ignore the facial controller here and use a split window. So if we go over here to the left, we can see that there's a perspective view, a 4 quadrants view, and a split view. In the split view, I'm going to go to Panels, Perspective, Orthographic, and there's the Mery facial cam. There we are. All right, grabbing these center controllers allows me to manipulate her eyes and just have her eyes open. I think it's a little less freaky to have Mery walking around with her eyes open as opposed to closed. And that's all we're going to be doing with the facial controls, so I'm just going to turn that off. Everything else is going to be Mery's full form. All right, so once we get her eyes open, I'm going to go down to my timeline and I'm going to change the range. Right now, when I first bring Mery in, it's set to 120 to 200. I'm just going to set both of these at 25. And the reason is because a general walk cycle, which contains 2 steps or 2 strides, takes about 1 second, which is 24 frames. And because I'm cycling it, I'm asking it to hit onto 25 frames. Which, if that's not immediately evident why I want to do that, hopefully as I go along, you'll see why I want to do that. So, next thing I want to do is I want to focus on one piece at a time, as opposed to getting everything pose to pose to pose to pose. I want to try coming at this piece by piece. I mean, we're still going to do a pose to pose situation, but I don't want to be distracted by every facet of Mery. I want to get one part working really well and then build up and layer on. So I'm going to go to my visualization tab and I'm just going to hide Mery's arms. I'm not going to worry about the arms. I'm only worried about the torso and the legs. Okay. Move this over here. The next thing I also want to do, which is a little different, instead of going with stepped keys, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm set to auto. I'm not going to worry about stepped keys this time. I want to try just playing with auto tangents and then tweaking the outcome. Also, make sure you have the right evaluation mode on. Some of you have noticed that when you are manipulating Mery and not changing the evaluation mode to DG, that crazy things happen with her legs. Parallel is the default, but DG is the evaluation mode that Mery works best in. Okay? All right. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and grab one of Mery's legs, and I'm going to move it forward. Let's say 30. And let's move this back leg back about -30. Like a contact pose. I'm then going to grab this, which is Mery's root control, and I'm going to bring it down until I feel like her feet are on the ground. Okay? And with this first pose, I'm going to go ahead and set a key, and set a key. All right, going back over here to frame 25, let's not do 25. Let's focus on one stride at a time. Let's go to 13. So let's just worry about the first step, and then we'll worry about the second half, because I got kind of an idea of utilizing some of these neat tools inside of Mery's picker to kind of save us some time today. So all right, we got our first pose. We're just worried about the feet and the hips. And I'm going to go to frame 13, and I want the exact opposite of what I already have. So the hips can stay exactly as they are. I'm just going to set a key on that root control, which is called the torso control. But essentially, this is what a root control is. When you hear animators refer to a root control, they're usually talking about the middlemost controller of the character that controls everything outside of the global controller. The global controller is how you position your character in a scene, and then it's the root controller that allows the character to move away from that global control. Now, notice that her feet are not moving with that root control. They seem bound to the global control, and that has to do with the constraints. So if I go over here to Mery's picker and the third tab over says constraint, you will see that her feet are actually attached to the global controller. If I wanted to, I could tell it to follow the hip, which effectively says that this is now following the root control. So you can see how this foot now follows that. Well, I don't care to do that right now. Let's go back. Did I go back too many steps? No. I don't care about that right now at this present moment. I just wanted to explain. So I have a root controller here. I'm setting a key on 13 exactly as it's positioned on frame 1, but I'm going to flip the feet because remember this is a first step. Apologies for the coughs. I've got some terrible allergies today. All the pollen in the air. All right, and switch this. And I have auto key on, another important detail. So this little red icon is lit up to indicate that every time I make a change, it's going to automatically key in my timeline. Okay, so when I press play, looks a little silly, but it's a start. Now we are going to be basing this on Richard Williams' book, The Animator Survival Kit, and he has steps for a basic breakdown, pose-to-pose breakdown of a walk. And so that is what we're going to be basing this on. And what this would be is the first key and the last key, the two contact positions. All right? Now, I have written here on a piece of paper all of my, different poses. And if you don't have the Richard Williams image right in front of you, then you can write these down with me. Frame 1 is going to be the contact position. Frame 4 is going to be the down position. Frame 7 is going to be the passing position. Frame 10 is going to be the up position. And of course 13 will be the next contact position. All right, we'll worry about the other frames later, but that's going to be important to know. So I'm going to go to my breakdown pose, essentially, between these two keys, which would be frame 7. That is where my passing position would be. And I'm going to grab that hip controller, and I'm going to set it back to 0. Maybe not quite 0, it's a bit rigid. Let's just add a little bend, just a little. Maybe it looks like it's going to be about -0.4. There we go. So now we're getting a little bit of movement in there. Okay. So I'm going to worry about this 1 foot at a time now that we've got this general movement, and this actually be a good time to save. So I'm going to go over here, File, Save Scene As, and I'm going to call this Demo 001, or Step 1, I'll just call it. Their contacts, I don't know. You can call it whatever you want. This is a demo for me. As you can see, I ran through this before and I called it Step. Doesn't really matter what you call it, just as long as you know what you are doing in the scene. Okay, so we've got this started. Let's go ahead and work out some of the movements on these feet. So when we have a contact pose, typically we have the heel up. So I'm going to click on this main controller here, and I'm going to use the heel lift. And I'm just going to lift this up a bit. Maybe -22. There we go. And then by the time we get to this contact pose, it's going to be back to 0, or not contact, but passing position. And then when we get over here, we're going to be at a ball lift instead. So let's go ahead and do the ball lift. It's about 20, that'd be great. All right, so let's go ahead and press play. It looks very weird. That's okay, we're just getting things kind of hammered out. If this were stepped key, we'd have a contact, we'd have a passing, and we would have this next contact pose. The reason it looks weird on frame 7 is the interpolation that's happening here, and because I did not have an anchor point for my ball lift. So essentially with the ball lift, when I entered in 10 or 20 over here, it's interpolating between frame 1 over here, where ball lift is 0, 20 over here, and then number 7 is going to be 10 because of the animation curve. So if we take a look here inside the graph editor and we look for ball lift, you can see that slow progression. So obviously on the contact pose, we don't want the ball lifting, so 0, and there we go. And there is our start. Okay, so next let's look at the down position. So we have the contact here. The down position is going to be on frame 4. And when we have a down pose, generally speaking, this foot should be flat on the ground. So let's take out that heel lift. And let's also go ahead and key the ball lift. I know that doesn't, you're probably thinking, wait, why does it matter if we key the ball lift? It will matter here in a bit, and I'll explain, but for now, just follow my lead. All right, so generally on the down frame, you feel the torso going down, and right now it's interpolating into the passing position. So on frame 4, let's go ahead and lower that down. So on frame 1, it's at 30. Maybe we should think to lower this down, or sorry, it's not 30, I was looking at the wrong channel. It's frame -6. So on frame 4, let's go ahead and bring this down a bit, just to feel like a down position. It feels very low. So there's our contact, down and up. Maybe we should bring the contact up. Let's do that. Yeah, I kind of like that. Of course, this foot is now floating off the ground, but we will touch on that later. I think this works better with the heel lifting up. So that looks like -4. Let's middle mouse click to 13 and press S. That way, middle mouse clicking allows you to hold a pose. So like, see how this is the down pose and over here is a contact? Well, if I click on this and I middle mouse click here, it holds the pose without changing anything. So it's just kind of a fun little shortcut. All right, so we got our contact pose going into a down. Now we actually feel like the character is going down some, and then up into a passing position. Just ignore the other leg right now. In fact, if it helps, we could pull Mary's picker back up, and we can actually hide one of the legs, the leg we're not using. Oops, pinwheel of doom. Let's try again. There we go, technical difficulties. Okay, so we're just worrying about this foot. And so we've got keys on contact and down and passing. Let's worry about the up position. That's going to be frame 10. All right, so this is when Mery needs to start going up a little higher. If we grab her root control and we go to the graph editor, we can see that naturally it wants to interpolate downward. So we want to bring this up. So before we do that, let's bring this heel up some more. Let's go to ball lift and just bring this up some more to 20. Let's bring her torso up. See that? Much better. Let's go and press play. Yeah, I think that's working. Contact, down, passing, up, contact. I know it looks a little silly. All right, let's go ahead and bring the other leg in and deal with its poses. And I'm going to go ahead and save this since I got one leg down. We'll just say, we'll call this pose shaping. All right, where is Mery's picker? There it is. Let's go to her visualizer and bring that leg on back. It's going to look very strange, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and start over here. Grab that backmost foot, and let's bring that ball lift in. About 20 ought to do it. And then, of course, when we get to the breakdown, we're going to want to turn that off. And then when we get back to the next contact, this is when we're going to want the heel lift on. Maybe not that dramatic, maybe more like -20. All right, of course, that heel lift is going to want to interpolate if we don't add an anchor here at 7. So let's go ahead and set that to 0. There we go. Okay, it's a good start. So when this foot is at a down, we know that this one is going to be lifted up because it's going to start carrying its journey into the passing position. So let's go ahead and grab this and lift it upward. Maybe rotate it some. And maybe think about taking out the ball lift. Maybe not. Let's just see how it looks. No, actually, I kind of like that transition. All right. Let's go to the passing position and bring this up a little higher. Maybe add a little drag. I wonder if there's anything that would let me add a little bit of drag to this foot. Let's see, let's play a little bit. Heel lift, no, no drag there. Toe lift, no, not really. Ball lift, kind of. I think if I'm going to want to add some drag to this foot, I'm going to end up having to use the toes. It's not exactly the most flexible foot. It'd be nice if there was like a curve in here that allowed me to play with the shape more. But let's just stick to the basics for right now. That's something we can address with animation layers later. It's a very bland little walk, but at least it gets the idea across. All right, so let's move on to number 10. And this is when we're going to want to start preparing for that contact. And then we got to bring everything back down to earth. All right, let's go ahead and press play. All right, looks good. Now, if I set this to play at 12 instead of 13, you'll notice that the interpolation is much smoother. And that's because frame 13, if we go look at 13 real quick, frame 1 and frame 13 are the same exact pose, just flipped. So if we were to cycle it, and let's just pretend our cycle was completely done, like all 25 frames. If we have frame 1 and frame 25 being the same, it just appears that Mery is standing still for a frame. That's why we go one frame beyond the actual cycle itself, which would just be 24 frames. I hope that makes more sense. I'll touch on it again later here in a sec. All right, so now that I've got this one stride going, and again, very important that we make sure there's keys on every one of these points. So just going to go back in and make sure I have set a key on all of these points. I don't want there to be anything floating, because the technique I'm going to use can cause trouble if all these channels aren't locked in. All right, so now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and save the scene, and I'm going to call this like stride 1, so I know that I completed stride 1. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and set this to 25. Nope, 25, not 255. So now it's a step and then it stops. All right, perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on frame 1, and we need to go ahead and list where the other frames are going to be. So remember, 13 is a contact, right? So 16 is going to be my next down position, 19 is going to be my next passing position, and 22 is going to be the last up position, with of course 25 bringing it all around. So it's just important to know where those poses are going to land. Again, there is an image from Richard Williams' book that I'll provide on the Dropbox for my students, and you can reference that, but if you don't have the image in front of you, that's why I'm reading off where the poses can be found. All right, so we have our contact. Let's go ahead and move to the down, which would be on frame 16. So 16 is where my next pose is going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and set a key for these 3 controllers. And then I'm going to go to frame 4. I'm going to middle mouse click frame 16, go to my body tab over here, and I'm going to say mirror legs. Boom. And that switches the legs. So now you can see it transition into a nice down. Okay, so let's go ahead and, I wonder if is that staying put? Yeah, 4. Gotta set a key there for that down position. All right, so the next one is going to be on frame 19, and it's going to be from frame 7. So let's click on 7 and middle mouse click 19 and set a key for the hip. Boom. All right, and then let's go ahead and set keys here for the feet, and then mirror legs. There we go. I don't know if this took. Let me take a look. No, it looks like it did. It's definitely dipping down before going to the passing position. All right, perfect. So the up position is on frame 10. I'm going to click on 10, and then I'm going to middle mouse click frame 22. And with the pelvis selected, I'm going to go ahead and set a key, because that's going to be the position of the pelvis. I'm going to key these feet, and then I'm going to mirror legs. And it'll automatically key when I mirror them because I have auto key on. And then the last move is to click on frame 1, middle mouse click frame 25, and press S again. Again, make sure you're keying all of these controls. You don't have to switch anything this time. So now when I press play, do you feel that like dip there at the very end? It's because I have this stopping at frame 25. Let's set it to 24. Should interpolate better. There we go, a little bit smoother. And there we've got the basic leg mechanics. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this. Go ahead and save scene. And just say that we got the leg poses down. All right, the next thing that we got to worry about is the hips, because this is not a very realistic hip movement, is it? If we look at our books, and I don't think I have this graphic posted on the Dropbox, so I'm just going to tell you where to find it in your copy of the Animator Survival Kit. It would be page 146, and it addressed the idea of hip shifting, and that has to do with center of gravity, which we've talked about. So what is center of gravity? Just as a quick recap, center of gravity is where the mass is most concentrated on your character, or on you, and anybody who's standing has a center of gravity. If you're just standing and you don't have like a backpack on, or you're not carrying anything, and you're not engaged in some sort of activity, your center of gravity will be at rest somewhere around your navel. When you are walking, you want to make sure your base of support, those are your feet, stay under that center of gravity. So I'm going to click on the hip, and I'm going to go on frame 1, and I'm going to just set a key. Now I could, maybe I want to try using animation layers for this. Let's go to the animation layers. I have my hip control here, and I'm just going to go over here and say create a layer from selected. So this is our base animation here. When I click on the animation layer, it's got just the torso and kind of a clean slate. I'm going to go ahead and name this. Let's call this the hips. All right, so on the contact, I'm going to just set a key, and the other contact's at 13, and then again at 25. So let's bring 25 back in. All right, on the passing position, that's frame 7, this is when one leg is up in the air, and that dramatically changes our center of gravity. Oh, I just realized something. I'm going to want to add this and this controller. I'm going to want to add them to this layer. Add selected objects to my hips layer. All right, perfect. So hips and feet. I'm going to go ahead and grab that foot controller, and I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to set a key for both of these. So I'm going to shift grab both these controllers, set a key on 1, set a key on 13, set a key on 25. All right, now I'm going to go to the breakdown. That's the passing position, frame 7. This is where things are going to change and why I added both of those controllers to my animation layer. I'm going to grab this hip, and I'm going to shift click this foot, and I'm going to move them both over. So what this does, if this foot represents the center or the base of support, go straight line up and make sure our center of gravity is staying over it. Okay, it looks like, let's just set it to 7, make life easy. All right, and that's frame 7. Let's go ahead and set a key here just to anchor. I don't know if it'll be necessary, but better safe than sorry. Go to 19, and let's do the same thing. Let's grab these over and move them over. So I'm going to go with -7 this time. All right, and let's rewind and press play. Cool, you can kind of see that weight shifting back and forth. It's a bit dramatic, but this is what's nice about using animation layers, is we can change the weight. If I go in here and I press 0.5, I can dial down the intensity of that weight shift. So now it's not quite as dramatic. I can just kind of show you in real time. If I turn this all the way off, slowly build it up, all the way to its extreme. Kind of like this subtlety here at let's just go 0.3. It's got a nice little bit of side-to-side movement, a little more subtle. All right, so let's actually rename this translate, or maybe hips translate. Will it let me? There we go. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to grab this hip controller, and I'm going to create another layer. And this time I'm going to worry about rotations. So frame 1, I'm going to go ahead and set a key. Oh wait, I'm on the wrong layer. Anim layer here. I want this to be about hip rotate. All right, set a key, and set a key on where my key poses are. because that's where my hips are going to stay pretty stationary, straight ahead. It's when we get to this point that things begin to change a little bit. So if we look in the textbook, which I don't know if you have in front of you, but you see kind of an exaggerated rotation of the hips. They don't just shift side to side, they also rotate. So it looks like it's going to be kind of a side movement and maybe a little bit of a rotation this way. It's quite dramatic. Let's go with 10. And then this one looks like go with -9. Back to normal. And then the next one is on 19. So let's go with this. Middle mouse click 19. And then let's just go with different, or set a key and go with different translations. -10 and +9. There we go. And press play. Oh, it's very dramatic. But again, because we did this on animation layers, we can dial this down. So I got this hip rotation down. Let's just drop it to 5 or 0.5 and see how we like it. Yeah, it's pretty nice. It just adds a little, it breaks up the movement a little bit and just adds to the believability of the performance. Let's go ahead and set this at 24 so we can see it play out without that extra key. All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and save the work. Cool. All right, back to our base animation. Important we go back to our base animation layer. And let's bring our arms back in. So visualization, show arm, show arm. Now it just doesn't look quite as good anymore, does it? Okay, so I think the first thing I want to do is decide how I want to control the arms. And I think the easiest way is with IK switches. So by default, this is set to FK, meaning that every single limb moves almost like a stop motion puppet, one joint at a time. I'm going to go into my body mode and I'm going to just click this button right here, IK, FK, boom, and it switches it to an IK handle. And just like before, I think I'm just going to turn off the arm I'm not using so I can focus on one arm at a time. All right, and let's go ahead and bring this wrist down. This has got stretch turned on, which is kind of fun. I'm going to leave it on because that's going to grab a little bit of, make a little bit of forgiveness for us if we decide to push the controller past its limit. If you don't like that, you can always go into the, I think it's in the hand controller, there it is. See where it says stretchy? If you turn that off, you see her hand goes back to normal. But I kind of like the stretchy. I kind of like having that ability to exaggerate a little. Alrighty. The arms are usually in the middle around the passing position. So let's go ahead and set a nice neutral pose. You can act this out if you want to and kind of see what it looks like on your own. We can see how your hand would look in this position, I mean. And let's go ahead and relax that hand. That hand looks kind of crazy. In the picker, we can click this little white box, which allows us to kind of select everything in the hand and just sort of relax it. And we can do the same thing with the thumb. Grab this little box here and we can just sort of relax her thumb a bit. There we go. A lot better. So since this isn't going to be changing much, I'm not going to worry about keying all those fingers. I'm just going to key on the passing positions, so 1 and 19. Oh, one thing I note, the torso hasn't really been animated to interact with the hips. So probably want to address that with this controller here. So with the torso controller, I want to set a key on 1, 13, and let's bring 25 back into the picture. Because it's going to be nice, and during the contact position, everything is kind of focused front. So let's go to the passing position and see how the torso would change. So looking at Richard Williams' book, we note that this is going to be kind of going down this way and positioned a little bit this way. A bit exaggerated. Let's see. Let's dial that down to like 3. And this one down to like 5. Okay, and then let's middle mouse click on 19 and set a key. And we're just going to switch those around, -3 and -5. Now the one downside here is I didn't put this on animation layers, so if I want to dial it down, I got to kind of do it manually. So I set this to 2 and set this to 4 if I want to dial back the intensity of those rotations. That's what animation layers are so great. Still a bit exaggerated, maybe 1.5, 3.5. That's fine. Okay, so now that we got that done, let's go see how that affects the arm. See, this is going to be starting from the front and moving backward. So let's go ahead and move this arm forward. So we've got some clipping going on. Let's go ahead and adjust this. Let's see. I'm going to stand up and walk a little bit so I can kind of feel this out myself. Okay, it seems like it straightens out before it comes forward, so it kind of loses some of that bend over here. Okay. Go to 25. And go to frame 1, middle mouse click to 25, and set key. See how that's looking. Not too bad. All right, now let's go ahead and bring in the other hand. Oh, sorry, forgot how silly this looks. Oh, saving our work, very important. We'll say arm 1. Okay, so first thing I want to do is go in here and set that to FK. And let's go ahead and go to frame 7. How do I want to approach this? If I switch the positions, I think what's going to happen is it's going to key that way. So let's turn off auto key, and then let's mirror arms and set a key here. And then I think, yeah, it goes back to normal. That's what I was hoping for. I'm going to turn auto key back on. See, if I had left auto key on and I switched it, oh wow, look at that. Something weird is going on here. Oh yeah, the shoulders are not in the same position. Let's undo that. We're not going to be able to do that this time. I did not like the idea of mirroring our poses. Not a big deal. This is a lot easier to deal with than, say, the legs. So well, that's okay. That's okay. Let's go ahead and just not mirror that arm. Let's see, I think if I remember correctly, oh, turn the auto key back on instead of key. This one's going forward and this one's going to be, or I'm sorry, this one's moving back, this one's going to be moving forward. I want to offset them. I don't want them to be perfectly in line. So let's just bring this one a little bit forward more than the other arm. Let's rotate this. Let's bring this up. Maybe add a little drag here. I want to go ahead and relax this hand. Grab the fingers. Just relax that a little bit. Grab the thumb. Relax that some. Got 7. We know the other passing position is 19, so let's middle mouse click and go to 19. I kind of think that thumb's a little too relaxed now that I'm looking at it from different angles. Let's pop that thumb back up. There we go. Frame 19, let's push this. Ooh, not the hips. I want the wrist. Here, let's use this. There we go. All right, so on frame 1, I know that I'm going to want this hand to be back here. Maybe rotate it out a little bit. Ooh, I don't like that. Look at that snappiness. I think I need to bring this up. I don't like that. Let's go look inside the hands and see what we got going on here. I think I want this to be weighted. Let's go to curves and apply weighted tangents. I think I just want this to stay a little bit more maybe it's here that I don't like. Maybe I just need to bring this down. So I just don't like the way it snaps up. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Bring this back up. I'm just kind of experimenting a little. I'm breaking this and letting this hand kind of hang before it gathers. I think that's too dramatic. There we go. Yeah, I like that pickup. All right, let's keep moving forward. 13 is where this arm's going to be up front here. Oh, it's a bit too much there. Don't like that still. I wanted it to, just feels kind of snappy. Whoops. Like, I wanted a sense of drag there, but how to accomplish? I think this is where it's bothering me, because the lower arm is, Just add another key in there. I didn't want it to gather till this point, so I just like that little bit of drag right there. I just wanted it to kind of lock out and not. Yeah, and then gather itself back up. Don't like this right here. Maybe that'll help. Oh yeah, there we go. I mean, this is not super important. It's just something that I was playing with. I really shouldn't have gotten lost in it. I just like the arm staying kind of rigid here before collecting itself back up. I just felt like that added a nice touch to it. You certainly don't have to follow suit. It's just me getting distracted by things that are not consequential. Let's go ahead and bend this hand this way though, because it is going backward. And grab this, middle mouse click, and set key. Oh, it's so aggressive going back. This one's so gentle, and this one is so, oof, not so much. Let's take a look, see what's going on there. It's going way too far back is what I think is happening. Which, if I change that one, I gotta change the first key. And let's set this to 24. Oh, I still don't like it. I don't like this right here. I want there to be some drag. So between here to, let's look at the wrist, just the wrist, the rotation on the wrist, which would be the y-axis, rotate y. There, I want that. Yeah, there we go. That feels better. And then on this way, all the way down, I want this. Just have a little accent there. Of course, I'd have to do that to the other side. I didn't mean to get carried away. It just was bothering me, and I get a little in the zone. So I'm sorry. The important thing, the important takeaway is the arms and the hand, the animating the arms and the legs and having a convincing little walk. You don't have to get caught up in the minutia, which I still don't completely like with that arm. I would probably go in and redo that arm altogether, because you can see right here there's a bit buggy right there. Look at that weird snap. Yeah, I think I would just delete the keys on that arm and start over. I just don't like it. So if you were following along with me on this, this is where you would murder your darling. Be gone. All right. Let's go to frame 7 and start over. Yeah, goodness gracious. Actually, let's start with frame 1. And then let's go to frame 13, and that's when we get over here. Middle mouse click. Alright, so this is the part I don't like, because it all just, it's right here at 7 that I don't like. Let's go ahead at 7 and just bring this down and let this drag. Or if that'll fix it. Oh my god, that's all it took to fix. That's so funny. I just get carried away. Sometimes, let this be a lesson, guys. Sometimes you just gotta be willing to murder your darlings and just realize something isn't worth saving and just go back and do it again. What's it gonna hurt? Now let's take a look. Ah, that's so much better. Except, gotta offset this to 1025 so it doesn't look weird. All right. Oh, it's so much better. Okay, that's all I had to do. So I'm going to leave that into the tutorial. I was thinking about editing all of that out, but I'm not going to because I think it's a valuable lesson. Sometimes when something's not working, kill it and start over. Now I could go in and animate the head and really refine everything that I've got here, but I feel like this is good for some basic mechanics. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you have questions, feel free to send me an email.